this time of day.
Okay.
That came from the Netherlands.
The Transportation Committee meeting on February 14th, 2024 is being called to order. For roll call, I have Alderman Savage on my right, Alderman Rhonda Pendell on my left. So we have a quorum. At this time, I would also like to thank Alderwoman Tierney and Alderman Arnett for joining us.
We'll see.
Oh, no, speak for yourself.
I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda approved. And we'll take a motion to approve the minutes from January 10th, 2024.
So moved.
I will second, because Alderwoman Pendell Charles was absent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes approved.
Chair, may I move to, I'd like to nominate Alderwoman O'Neill for chair.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Moving right along, we have Transportation Board updates from Director Marcus Moore, ID 1124. Oh, I'm sorry. Chairman Kurt Riegel. I was reading department and saying board. Welcome, Kurt.
Welcome indeed to you. I have very little new of substance to add, so this will be quick. I will just mention one thing. We presently have 4 vacancies on the Transportation Board, a 5th occupied by a member who has almost never attended. So we have nearly 4.5 or so vacancies at the moment. And I have not been able to reach Hillary to find out whether that 5th one is indeed vacant. I noted with interest that the council is considering a backup plan to fill board vacancies, which I haven't looked at it. I know nothing about its details, but it seems like if the present system isn't working as well as it should, maybe a backup is a good thing to do. That's the situation with respect to board membership. Some of our vacancies are due to the fact that, frankly, some of the members are dispirited in the sense that our recommendations, which members have put a lot of effort into, haven't had noticeable effect. The Fare Free Transit had a great deal of analysis, a great deal of work, and it was dismissed nearly out of hand. We also put a lot of work into the parking district thing. At the last meeting, it sounded to me as though our recommendations were also being dismissed out of hand. And I would love to be corrected on that impression. But that's the situation. I would hope to rejuvenate in this new calendar year, rejuvenate the board, fill out the vacancies, and continue. One last thing, when Alderwoman Tierney ran the Transportation Committee, we made a recommendation concerning bicycles on sidewalks, which the committee and the council supported. It went to the legislature. It passed the House of Delegates once, twice, and now 3 times. If you recall, last time we asked for some help on the Senate because the Senate never got around to it. But this incarnation of the Transportation Committee was not supportive of that, saying that it's not our problem since we have an ordinance. The whole point of the request was so that well, first our city at the time, and then other cities around the state of Maryland would not have to, one by one, pass local ordinances for something that should be the default setting statewide. Notwithstanding the lack of support here, we did secure support in the state legislature on the Senate side. The bill was introduced and was heard favorably by committee, so I have every expectation that it will, in fact, pass both houses this year and become law. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Questions?
Thank you, Chairman Ragel, for coming. As far as the contribution and recommendations from the board, we certainly do appreciate it, and we do take that into consideration. I know with the fare free, we came to differing positions, but the board, especially, I know we spent quite a bit of time reading through that and talking with the then director, blanking on Kwaku's last name, former director. And as far as Dua, yeah, thank you. And as far as the, that's still something that's certainly, I think, on many of our minds. We just need to figure out a good way to get there. But as far as the parking, your recommendations on the parking district adjustments, I believe we included all those, and specifically at the last meeting, I think we requested amendments from the law office to reflect those recommendations, most of them. Not all of them, because there were some that we did discuss but disagreed, I think, as far as removing one of the parking districts. So I certainly don't want you or the board to have that perception. And maybe we could talk about other ways to improve communication. For example, Alderman Shandemeyer and I are starting to work on a Safe Streets ordinance, Safe Streets bill, they call it elsewhere. It just compiles a lot of different initiatives. And we would love to get the board's feedback on that. We're still kind of very early in drafting that, and want to work with some of the city departments, but I'm happy to chat with you.
Great, thank you.
About that at some point.
Thank you. Your words are reassuring, and I accept them in the positive intent that was intended. With respect to one of the recommendations, Parking District 5, I do recommend that you revisit those, especially the analysis, because as I read the ordinance, it intends that parking districts be established and operated to meet a need, a documented need for parking spaces. And the recommendation included data on the number of private parking spaces that already exist to serve residents in Parking District 5, the fact that some streets in Parking District 5 don't have a single resident on them, and that other parts of one other street in Parking District 5 is mismarked. There's a sign up on a street which is not even in the district. So there are a number of things that I think need to be looked at in detail, perhaps by Marcus and his department, if not the council itself. But parking districts exist to cover a need, and our contention, based on data submitted, is that there is no objective need in Parking District 5 to serve residents, because all of the residents in that parking district have their own private off-street parking. That's it.
Thank you. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda is ID 1024, Transportation Department update. Director Marcus Moore.
Good afternoon, everyone. Marcus Moore, Director of Transportation Parking. I just got a little bit of an update for you on our microtransit. We did partner with IT Curves, and they were selected as a partner for the software development of this type of service that we'll be providing. We had a kickoff meeting a few weeks ago to get, the logistics and things together with them. And we're in the process of, developing this service. Microtransit is an on-demand service where a reservation is required. You can take this, or this reservation can be made by calling our dispatch office, or we'll be setting up the online that you'll be able to do it yourself. We expect this project, this pilot project, to begin probably towards the end of April, definitely, early part of the spring. And I'll be able to provide status reports along each month as we get more and more along the way. As I mentioned to you earlier, we were going to give a brief out for the other things that we talked about with premium parking, but I know the agenda is calling for quite a bit more on the CIPs, but there's quite a bit that we'll discuss with premium parking at our next meeting in March about the focus group that we talked about that's been already formulated. By then, they'll have had their first of 3 meetings. The promo codes that everybody's been asking about, some standard operating procedures, and the visibility for this garage coming down Duke of Gloucester, and of course other on-street parking, signage that is. So we have a full agenda that we were going to use today, but we'll definitely go into greater detail at our March meeting. Does anyone have any other questions for me?
Nothing concerning this. I just have a general question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
This may not be in order, but I noticed coming in the parking garage, there are no open or full signs, and you don't know how many spaces. I don't know whose bailiwick that is.
Yeah, that is part of premium parking, and they're getting a new signage. I forgot what it's called, Parking Logics, I want to say. And what we'll be able to do is tie that number in along with our website, so you'll be able to see that. It'll be very, dynamic and moving along the way. But just getting that all installed, I would expect that in the next couple of weeks, clearly before our next meeting of this committee.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right.
Great, thank you.
Short and sweet. Thank you. Next up on our agenda is ID 2524, review of capital projects, the CIP with Director Burr Vogel.
Come on up, Sam.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Yeah, okay.
I'll take that.
I believe that Director Vogel is going to go through this entire list, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions afterwards. So if you have questions as he's going through the list, mark them down instead of individually after each one. All right. Thank you.
Burr Vogel, Public Works Director.
Sam Bryce, Chief Engineering and Construction.
Great to be with you this afternoon. Jumping right into the list, Moyer Park sidewalk enhancements. We're partnering with the Maritime Museum to construct that project. We will reimburse them for our portion. Gateway Park, county is conducting a planning effort. We'll be installing some natural trails there this spring. Rec and Parks are doing a bench. Beyond that, that park is kind of uncertain, given my note here that the Navy's not particularly supportive, and the same for DGS representing the archives. Next project, Hiker Biker Route 450. That is a county and state project. In the last CIP, I think the funding was zeroed out. We'll be proposing to remove it. College Creek Connector, Eric Lashinsky is with us, but the plan here is to break the project into phases, start a phase that we can bid out for full engineering design this year with the hope of constructing in 2025. Go ahead, Eric, if you got anything to add. Anything to add, Eric?
Working from home due to COVID. We're on the College Creek Connector Burr, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, this is a project we started working on design a couple of years ago. It's fairly complex. It's a boardwalk trail that's trying to connect King George Street to Calvert Street. Essentially, it's one of the important linkages to bring cyclists into the city via the B&A trail, where there's currently a gap. And this is along the frontage of St. John's College on College Creek. And then it goes under Route Boulevard, comes out along St. Anne's Cemetery, and then meets up at People's Park, where the trailhead for the West-East Express Trail would begin. We're splitting the project up into two pieces. The portion in front of St. John's is kind of going through its own process with the college, and we've made some good headway working with the college. The portion west of St. John's Street, essentially outside of the college campus area, is the focus of phase one, which we're looking to do as a design build project. And we've taken the project through a conceptual design phase. So we have enough information at this point to move into that next phase.
All right, thank you, Eric. Moving down to South Southwood, that design is out for proposals now. Looking to start that design later this spring or the summer. Construction, really at the earliest would be 2026. Fairly complicated right-of-ways in that area. Barbara Lane, targeting summer of this year, 2024 for construction. Cedar Park sidewalks, targeting construction in fall of 2024, with some additional stormwater design underway. Trail connections. Yep, doing the design there for Hilltop Lane between Spa and Forest.
Just want to add, it's actually Boxwood to Forest, but minor detail. It's about 5 blocks second segment.
Gotcha. Farragut Road sidewalk, some challenging terrain there along Farragut Road for a couple of blocks. So we'll split this into phases and we'll handle Cedar Park to Ludlow first. See what else we can do for the section between Ludlow and Schley after that. Spa Road sidewalk, kind of in a similar area as the trail connection. Next to Forest Road, targeting that for construction in 26. Okay, the Bay Ridge sidewalk from Bay Ridge / Forest and in towards Eastport. That one will be under design next year with construction in 2026. West-East Expressway, design is underway. Taylor Avenue, Graduate Hotel has submitted their deed. So moving forward on that project. Gibraltar has property rights issues. Law office is working. Cedar Park Road. This one, we've got a pilot with some new curbing installed to represent where we will have that crosswalk with some additional modifications to that intersection. If everything goes well there physically, we like where that crosswalk is going to be located, then we'll finalize that design and and then targeting for completion in the fall. The last thing we would do is put in that flashing beacon. Traffic signal rehab. Our next signal following the completion of Church Circle will be Bay Ridge and Tyler. That one will be going out for design, to bid for design here soon, and targeting construction in 26. Traffic safety improvements. Design is being packaged with the traffic signal project I just talked about, and that is 5 major corridors: Chesapeake Ave, Compromise Street, Edgewood Road, Tyler Ave, and West Street. Comprehensive look at each of those corridors for improvements in traffic safety, particularly pedestrian safety and traffic speed. Main Street reversal study. Really not a Main Street reversal at this point. It's more of a focus on Duke of Gloucester, what could be done there to make Duke of Gloucester two-way, which would then enable closure either temporarily or permanently of portions of Main Street or Randall. Electric Annapolis mobility plans, a very complicated project with a lot of departments involved, but the public works piece of this right now is the 5th Street Ferry Landing in Eastport. And we're developing concept designs. We would push that one out for a design build contract. When we're done with that concept design and pending some grant administrative hoops. Russell Street, another one with challenging property rights. This one on hold indefinitely. Main Street reconstruction following completion of any configuration changes that would come out of the Main Street study. We will start design on that project, construction in 27 or later. And then the last 2 projects, general roadways, general sidewalks. The general roadways 2024 and 2025 plans are posted on our websites. I've provided those all to council separately. The road condition assessment is complete, but our contractor is doing some data cleanup on that, so I don't have that available to share, but that should be any day. And we'll post that as well. And our sidewalk program will just follow our road program for the next 2 years. That is all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So going back up at the top to the Moyer Park sidewalk enhancements, let's see, you mentioned stormwater management.
Which one?
That is the first one, Moyer Park sidewalk.
Moyer Park sidewalks. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, why is stormwater management required for that?
Oh, I don't know that it is.
What were you referring to in that? Okay. So you're referring to like the permeable material?
I'm not sure what I said that you're asking me about. Could you restate what you think I said?
I thought I heard you say something about stormwater management.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just a sidewalk project, and I don't think we'd require much there. There's already been a bunch of stormwater management recently installed. The Maritime Museum is looking to change the configuration of the parking lot on the, I guess, the east side, closer to Bay Woods. That may require a grading plan and some additional stormwater.
Okay. Because there's, just so I think you're aware of some of this, but there are some other ideas that are being talked about, explored for that section in particular. One is for the whole section of roadway is going more towards a road diet. The other part is right across the street on the right. If you go further down, but on the right, there's some wooded area between the street and the treatment plant. And there may be some interest in trying to put some kind of, not necessarily sidewalk, especially if we have it on the other side new, but putting some kind of parking or other facility associated with Cars Beach. I think that's all very conceptual, but
Right.
then there are obviously a lot of trees there. But just to put that in your head in case there's any kind of other coordination that may be warranted.
The reason that jumps out to me to keep the path over here is probably the, minimal impact to trees on that side. And then Cars Beach is something that I've been involved in a little bit as well.
Yeah,
We can get down to this parking lot, but the idea being maybe this parking lot is all we need, right? If this gets expanded substantially, maybe we don't have to do additional parking for cars somewhere else.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. Thanks for the project. I'm looking forward to it.
Madam Chair, can I follow up on this? It's a general question about sidewalks everywhere. And it's two-parter. One, are we looking at...
Ross, you can only follow up if you use your mic.
Pardon? It's on.
Oh, it is? Julian says he can't hear you.
Well, tell them to come on over. Are we considering using permeable surfaces for sidewalks? And also, are we considering sidewalk construction that has conduit, passageway for conduit built into them so that eventually we can run things underground in the sidewalks?
No, to my knowledge, on both of those.
Seems like a policy question.
So the other question, let's see, fast forwarding to the hiker biker path number 3, 50025, Route 450 to the Navy Stadium. Did you say that this is getting removed?
It's really not a city project, right? It's not our road.
I thought we were, didn't the transportation board have some presentations? Is this the one that the board received presentations from SHA about as far as making improve? There were two different, I think Mr. Lashinsky, there were two different proposals.
It's a very, very active, well-funded project. It's just that it's being led by the state and county. The city's in an odd situation where we don't own any of the land, or the roadway, nor the land on either side of it. But yet we're a major stakeholder in making sure that it gets done. So we've been very involved. We've actually done our own design work to kind of push a certain design that we think would be better. But it's really being led by the state, and it's fully funded through 100% design. It's a major priority, I think, for all parties. The Navy's actively involved as well. So it's just, it was in the CIP previously because the city had contributed some funds to kind of doing a preliminary design, but at this point, it's not a city project.
Okay, so no city funding.
Right, no city funding.
Okay, now so I know there were two different proposals, like you said. Do you have any indication from the state which one? Because I think there was one that clearly favors as being better than the other as far as providing a longer connection.
Yeah. The sense I get from the state is that they really are leaning on the other parties to advise on the best alternative. And I think it's the Navy that's going to be sort of a big party in the decision, because so much of the design goes along their property, and I think we're really pushing for the shared use path on the north side, the two-way shared use path, and then continuing that over the bridge with a protected barrier. That would really be the ideal design, but I don't have a sense of where it's going to land yet.
Would it be helpful to get a resolution from the council as far as supporting one over the other, and maybe we could then get the mayor involved?
Sure. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think being sort of united on it, I think would be a value for sure. And I think the transportation board's advocacy was also really helpful so far.
Yeah.
We'll put that together.
Okay. Another one, Southwood, question on that one. It's the stormwater management and sidewalk. So I noticed this kind of theme, this is one I wanted to hit on, with a number of the street projects, and in particular some of the ones that are adding sidewalk. And so in this example in Southwood, there is no existing sidewalk, right? There's no existing stormwater management, I believe, from at least most of it. And I think I saw in one of the comments here in the CIP that they're waiting on right-of-way. And you mentioned before there are a number of right-of-way issues with the number of streets. But one of the things that got me thinking, because I did measure using some GIS, measure some of the road widths, lane widths, and most of our lane widths seem to be between 11 and 13 feet. And Johns Hopkins recently put out a recommendation of 9 feet lanes that's the sweet spot they found if you want to have the safest roads. And so that's something I know a number of us are going to be pushing for, as far as maybe even setting a maximum road lane width of 9 feet. But my point of bringing that up is partly because in this instance, instead of securing right of way, have you looked at just putting the sidewalk and this, obviously stormwater being the existing, but putting the sidewalk in the existing right of way? I know the consequence of that will be it'll reduce the travel lane width, but this is a rural community, probably still wider than most Eastport streets, frankly. But I think the benefit to doing that is you get the project done quicker, potentially cheaper, because you don't have to worry about securing right-of-ways and paying for easements, whatever you're going to do with that. Makes the roads safer because they're narrower, and maybe we could free up some room for other kind of amenities, but in this case, focusing on the sidewalk expansion. But so just, I guess that's just my one bigger question is, have you looked at that kind of scenario?
So I'll flip over to Hilltop as an example. I think that's exactly what we're going to be doing at Hilltop to be able to make room for that 10-foot hiker-biker. I'm not as familiar with Southwood and don't know if we have the width necessary to do the stormwater and the sidewalk, but certainly as we go into the design, I'm all for that kind of thing.
Yeah, because it sounds like from the description, that's one of the things holding up the project are the right-of-way.
Not yet, right? Because in this one, we're just in the early stages.
Okay.
We haven't even hired a designer yet.
Okay.
But we do know from what's there, it looks like we'll have to acquire some right-of-way. And looking at, let's say, Barbin Lane, for example, what's that been, 15 years maybe?
Yeah.
We don't want to be 15 years on Southwood.
Yeah.
Sam, anything to add?
Well, Barbud's,
That's what I was thinking.
Barbud's a similar
Can I follow
idea.
up on the Southwood?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm asking Madam Chair. Thank you. Have you all, because I've seen the emails going back and forth lately about Southwood, have you all consulted or talked with the residents or had any sort of interaction with them about this? I know it's preliminary, but.
I think we met a number of years ago with residents in Southwood and talked to them about what some of their problems were and some of their concerns. I'm not sure if we've had further discussions or individual discussions with them.
I know that there have been some sales in that area, so I'm sure at this point there probably may be some new residents as well.
And that's one of the problems you always have. That's one of the problems on Barbud Lane. The people who sold their houses and new people moved in and didn't see the problem. One of the problems in Southwoods is, as you well know, Alderman, is a lot of those lots had one house on them and they were 2, 3, 4 lots. They were open lots. People sold the houses and they put 3 houses back on the lots. And it creates a whole nother problem, as I've told people before. When I came here, that was a project. We were it was curb and gutter, Southwoods, and improving the stream going down, and the public didn't want it. Now we've got another set of problems there, which is as more houses are built, even with stormwater management, you have more runoff that runs off the roads, runs into people's yards, and it becomes issues.
Thank you, Mr. Bryce.
Jump to Cedar. Cedar Park is the next one, so I imagine you had questions on that.
Sure. Cedar Park, when we're talking about the 40022, that is the Cedar Park from
Your
Halsey.
mic on.
Sorry, my mic's down. From Halsey to Windell. Because there's two sections of Cedar Park that have CIPs. So this one is where the current temporary sidewalk is from Halsey Road to.
Right.
Right. And that's at full design and permits requested, and so fall 2024?
Fall 2024, full design with the exception of some stormwater that we've had to add recently. So there's kind of a parallel design and permitting to do there.
Because about 3 months ago, it was going to be April or May.
Right. So that's before we ran into whatever the stormwater issue is.
Okay. That's my question about this.
And the full Public Works Project Management team will be back for a City Council work session in a month or in March. So when we have the full expertise of the staff here, we could get into a little bit more of that if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, my question on that, just in the similar vein, is looking at narrowing roadway. Because I think while we're in here doing this work, we might as well narrow, because again, that's one thing I know I'll be looking to introduce with some others, is having a maximum road width, at least on probably our, what do they call them, the connectors and the minor arterials perhaps, but especially some of the community roads like this, is 9 feet. And so this is a good time before to really get to start the road diet, to start the complete streets, is when we're looking in here for sidewalks. Because
Sure.
This particular.
I think this one will do that. We'll
they're
narrow
already
the street a little
It's
bit.
actually causing a problem.
Oh.
Yes.
Causing what kind of, the temporary that's there?
The temporary that's there, and then the parking on the outside of it, and the travel lanes are 9 heading out and heading in, and there are 2 blind curves. I've been requesting to lower the speed limits from 25 down to 20, because that would help things out a lot. Because of the roadway being on its diet, it has slowed things down a bit, but when you're talking about Naval Academy football weekends or races in the neighborhood, you've got all these people that are just following the 25 mile an hour, and it's a mess.
Okay.
So
Are there things that was a separate question of mine as far as speed limit. I emailed you about, can we reduce speed limits on some of our roadways if we look out to do that? So I know New York has a cap of 25 for the whole city, except for highways, and then Amsterdam reduced theirs to, I think, equivalent of about 18 miles an hour.
So let's take Edgewood, Hilltop, probably Spa Road's another example. What I see is people dramatically exceeding the posted speed limit. So from the Public Works perspective, our philosophy is we're going to expect enforcement in the future to be what it is today. And then to try to design the roadways, let's take Melvin Avenue, for instance, or some of the things we've done in Eastport, to just force people to slow down, create obstacles, narrow, all of that kind of stuff. So changing speed limits hasn't been real high on my priority list because I don't know that many people pay attention to them, frankly.
No, I agree. And I think that's where it needs to be coupled with, like you're saying, those obstacles or the road diet. Because it's people operate off of their unconscious perspective of how, and Edgewood Road's a problem because it's
Right.
so
I mean,
wide.
you can go 50 on Edgewood and feel just fine, right?
You do.
Unless you're a pedestrian and then you're terrified.
Yeah. Yeah. So I absolutely agree.
Okay.
I'm going to interject something on Edgewood Road if I might, because you have to also consider other issues. When we originally put together Edgewood Road as a design, we had a median in the middle of the roadway. And we did that in an effort to slow traffic down. We got pushback on that from our maritime industries because they come down with large boats. We particularly we also looked at things such as the raised crosswalks, and we got pushback on that also. And the reason for the pushback there was at the time we had, Mr. Smith had his catamaran business down there. All these boats would leave on low buoys. Low buoys hang up on raised crosswalks. So because of these items and the desire to also put in a bike lane along there, we wound up with a larger cross-section than we really wanted to put in. But if we had, for example, put the bike lane behind the curbing and increased the size of the sidewalk, then we would have had difficulty with the maritime industry and them bringing in boats. And again, Mr. Smith was designing catamarans at the time, getting boats out of Edgewood Road. So, it's a trade-off many times in what you're able to do.
Yeah. No,
That might be a situation where we do need to try to figure out an enforcement option.
Yeah, I mean, side note, at some point I do want to sit down with all of you because that is probably the top 3 in my list of complaints I get from people are people speeding on Edgewood. So I do obviously want to support the maritime as much as I can, but when it comes to a lot of these slowing people down and the road diets, I'm more concerned about pedestrian cycle safety. That's what I want to prioritize. And different aldermen now, different priorities that I'm hearing from people. But anyway, definitely want to talk more about that.
I'm guessing we'll hear loudly from the maritime industry when we come out with a design that impacts them.
I'll deal with it.
More questions? Are you good?
Let's see, we have Hilltop and Spa. Farragut. Oh yeah, Farragut was one I wanted to hone in on too, because that's another, I think, a good example of a road diet would be well situated for this. It's a wide, very wide road with 3 lanes. There's a middle turning lane. I don't even think there's any parking on the side. You really don't need 3 lanes there. I would guess, right? And again, as far as that's a priority, I believe Mr. Lashinsky can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I think that's a priority for a connector between some of the main cycle routes that we're trying to get in. So that would be, I think, a key. We've got no parking, a middle lane we don't need. Let's get that narrowed, and we can put in bike lanes, maybe some trees. I think it'd be great to look at that kind of thing. Is that right, Mr. Lashinsky? As far as the connector? Bike connector?
Yeah, I mean, it is an important connector from, north to south, get to the stadium loop, get to the Poplar Trail, schools.
Let me mention something. There is parking on that roadway. It's I think, down from Howison down to Cedar Park, so there is parking. There are also the left turn lanes provided so that you can get into the stadium, because that's stadium parking for the Naval Academy, as well as for the state offices. We have a 8 or 10 foot wide bike trail that runs around the academy that was built using money for alternative methods, alternative transportation methods. That trail actually goes down to Farragut and ties into the sidewalk near one of the exits from the district court. So as far as cyclability goes, I think that is one of the better locations that we have got.
Yeah, there is the cycle path, multi-use path. I don't think it's just cycle right next to that, but I think there could be improvements made as far as expanding that multi-use path or making a dedicated pedestrian, or in this case, sidewalk. But while we're at it, we might as well look at these things. We have a goal of what's the Vision Zero safety that the county's released, and I think the cities signed on. They're doing all around the country. This is a part of that. I'd rather prioritize pedestrian and bike safety on these roads by narrowing them than saying, oh, well, during special events, they're going to need a left turn lane. I mean, we've got to start looking at these, at least looking to see, is this feasible? Is this possible? Because right now I feel like we're just going with standard cookie cutter approaches to the road expansion. And that is, I think, what, again, a number of us want to get away from. A number of things we can do as far as allowing people to bike around more safely.
I'm happy to add a 6th corridor to 40060. Right, we got these 5 that I listed there. Let's put Farragut on there, and let somebody do that analysis of, can we lose these turn lanes or things of that nature. Help out that sidewalk project. If we just bump into the road as opposed to pushing into people's yards, makes that sidewalk project easier.
Yeah.
Right. And as you and I spoke and walked it.
Yeah, you walked me down here, right?
So we walked down it, the director and I did one day, and as a result of that, we did get about 25 feet of sidewalk put in from Schley towards Rao Boulevard,
Right.
Which has been hugely successful with the residents because it allows them to come out of the neighborhood, make a left, and go down to the bottom of the hill in order to cross to the stadium versus trying to cross at the crest of a hill or
Right. I
just
think
below
right on the other
crest
side of this hill we're looking at in the picture here.
Right, so they were taking their lives into their hands because they were trying to cross over to access the stadium walkway. And that 20 feet of sidewalk is fantastic. But it's yet another sidewalk that ends where the sidewalk ends.
Right.
And we need to complete that from where that ends to Rao Boulevard and then cross over Rao Boulevard. I've had probably 25 people reach out to me in the last 3 weeks since Chelsea's Wharf opened, saying, we want to walk to get beer and we can't on a sidewalk. So that's going to be in, hopefully, this year's addition to the CIP is to continue that sidewalk on the other side.
Further to the northeast. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
connect
awesome.
them down. And we can do a walkthrough again and see
Sure.
how treacherous it is to walk,
I'm sure it's just as treacherous as what we did a few months ago.
right? There's a lot of work going on in there. Are you finished with your question, Jim? No rush.
I'll skip some. Bay Ridge is on here, Bay Ridge Avenue sidewalk, but I thought that's a state road. Is that, are we in charge of maintenance on that? I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. not
Bay Ridge sidewalk is the one that I see
sorry,
is
I was
going
looking I meant
from the
spot.
Shell station down towards the church.
Yes, and that one, my question on that one was, you said landowner in favor of plans of moving the bus stop away from the road?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's not currently ADA accessible where the bus stop is.
So to bring that sidewalk in, there's a bus stop in the way, so we've got to move the bus stop back.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Need a little more property rights, but that won't be an obstacle.
So, and one, just to, again, this might be something we'll have to do down the road, but the county did a safety study on Forest Drive a year or so ago and had a number of recommendations. They had some that were city recommendations or things that the city had needed to do, right? And I can't remember in this case if it was.
I think Eric knows a lot about that.
Yeah. So in this intersection particularly, I was excited to see it in there, but they called for removing that slip lane.
Yep.
That comes down. Hey, I think actually I may have mentioned this to you before, but because it's safer for pedestrians walking and bicyclists too. But if we have that slip lane, maybe we can keep that I mean, we'll always have the right of way, but keep that space and just turn that slip lane into some kind of bike lane, improved sidewalk down that entire side. Now, I guess that's probably outside
on the
scope
Bay
of
Ridge
just-
Gardens side.
Yeah. Probably down the scope
We're
of
really-
this project, but
I think the long-term vision for the Forest Drive corridor in terms of a dedicated bike path is on the other side of Bay Ridge Road, on the shopping center side, where we have, kind of more right of way and to work with, basically work with the shopping center. But one thing we're going to be adding to the CIP this year, that it's still at the beginning stages, but we've been working on this another bike corridor called the Bay Ridge Avenue Bikeway that would go, basically make it safer to go from Spot Creek Bridge to Quiet Waters Park. And we did a feasibility study last year that helped us get some design funding from the state to take it to 30% design. And so that now it's kind of at the stage where it should be in the CIP. And we'll probably be kicking that off in the summer. But that would be the opportunity. I can share with you what the feasibility showed, but that slip, we want to get rid of that slip lane. But in terms of reusing it, it's probably best as sort of like more pervious, like a additional planted area or something. I don't know, from a bike connectivity, it's probably not going to be that functional, but
okay, we'll keep that in the back of our heads then. Thank you. I think that'd be great to get some improvements down that corridor. Traffic signal rehabilitation, jumping forward to 50018. Question on that one. So again, something I've just learned from watching a number of videos lately about transportation improvements that work for cycling pedestrians is, and I can't remember the term, there's a term for it, but so for traffic signals, a lot of them in states, at least in the city, they're set far back. So they're on the far end of the intersection, so people can pull up past the crosswalk and just sit in the middle of the intersection. Now, what some jurisdictions are doing differently is require that they instead are on the close end of the intersection, so you can't pull forward, because if you pull forward, you can't see the traffic light. So they stay out of the crosswalk, which again makes it safer for people trying to cross the street, and it keeps that area free. So I'm wondering if, when we're in there doing rehabilitation, if that would be an option to reconfigure some of the traffic signals so that they can be put in this new.
Do we fall under, this is a question for Sam, do we fall under state highway design standards for our intersections?
We fall under the Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is the federal law. And so whatever is required under that is what we would do. Now, generally, we follow the State Highway Administration's guidelines and standards. But that is what our practice is. If we were to change that, I think that it would be important and prudent to go back to State Highway and go, this is what we're going to do. Do you have an objection to this? Because you don't want to be out there doing something on your own, particularly with a project that's, $150,000. So I think we have to be very cautious.
Just in terms of,
about
right,
changing.
kind of the standard engineering thing, we'd like to have our standards to fall back on. Why did you design it this way? Because there's a standard out there that says design it this way. But it sounds like some municipalities are trying some innovative things, maybe with the support of their city council, a resolution or something like that. I'm open to the idea.
I can certainly look into it. I'd be curious if SHA did have standards for this. Maybe. I mean, my perception is that they're kind of be more traditional, but I do know, and I have to look at specific states and cities here that are doing it. I know you see it in older towns where they have some of them where the lights are still on the close end of the intersection. But again, I can't remember what city it was, but I think it was somewhere in the Netherlands that they're starting to make this a standard because they realized it prevents that drifting of cars.
Sure.
I think that's good news on Main Street as far as looking into, again, possibly just even being able to close that down at some point. Good news on electric mobility. Russell Street was another one where I was looking, not just narrowing it, but is that a street we could just look to maybe make one way? It's already very narrow, so maybe we just make it one way, and which will give us more space to avoid some of the right-of-way expansion and maybe put in some other amenities.
If I'm remembering this one correctly, it's not a matter of right-of-way expansion we're looking for, it's a private street. The city does not actually own it.
We can't find any record that we took title to it. And we have gone back into the 1800s looking. So we find basically a vacancy between the Toyota dealership, and if I say this, the only person who will probably know what I'm talking about is the Heck Company, right?
Absolutely.
So we find that as a vacancy, but we can't find anything that shows that anyone ever acquired it, whether that is the county or the city. And because that was in the annexed area that we took over in 1951. Okay, and so when you start to deal with the adjacent owners, what rights do they have in the property if we don't have title to it? So what you have is you have parking spaces, perpendicular parking spaces that are actually out in the right of way. You also have what Toyota has with encroaching into the right of way with parking and other items. So when you go out there and start to have the right of way issue, you have to be looking at that, of how much pushback are you going to have relative to that. That was a road that we had discussed and proposed as having a bike lane on it. We could look towards having an off-road bike lane on it, but then you're also running the bicycles adjacent to a very long curb depression. And if you have it on both sides, you're dealing with, I'm going to say post haste, and their parking that is which extends out into the right of way. So you've got the parking issues. You've also got what rights the city actually has in there. Going back to what you were saying, Alderman, there were discussions years ago that planning and zoning led relative to turning Smithville one way, because that is very narrow and is very, very difficult to navigate sometimes, particularly with two-way traffic, and particularly when there's parking from the car dealerships along that roadway. And that never went anywhere. They saw that became too much of they had too much opposition from both the businesses as well as the residents who live between Bates and Spa Road. In that study, they always had Russell Street being two-way.
So you said we're not sure we actually own that road, but you said we have a right of way.
We claim the road, and we maintain the road, but what rights you then have is basically defined by what you're using and what you're claiming. The adjacent property owners, because of their uses, may have rights that we can't extinguish.
Sure, but no. Well, I mean, but presumably, if we stay within our presumed right of way, that would be a non-issue. That's kind of my point. Because we have, again, presumably have utilities underneath the roadway, which we're maintaining as well with easements. But the easements would be on a. Well, no, actually, we don't need easements. If it's our right of way, no easements. But again, utilities under our right of way, we're maintaining. We're doing snow removal. So I think we should apply that same standard to change amenities if it means bike lane, sidewalks within that existing right of way. Because we can't just pick and choose what we decide to maintain. And that instance.
Yeah.
My last question has to do, I'm going to combine them. It might be more of a finance department, but general roadways and general sidewalks. When I'm looking at the schedule in the CIP, I was just a little confused because it says that more has been expended in, for example, January in 22 and 23 than was encumbered. Again, just not quite sure why. Do you know how that works? So it says like
That's one of the reasons I'm here.
7.5 million was expended for general roadways, but only 1.6 was encumbered. I thought everything that was expended had to be encumbered. I just wasn't sure, is that a backlog of money that is getting spent, encumbered in previous fiscal years?
I don't understand our munis system, and I will be very honest about that. But I do know, because that is a continuing project and it's capital money, is very, very possible that what has actually happened is we have had previous funding on it. And as we have gone forward, they continue to carry the expenditure as being a cumulative thing, looking at the previous years. That it's also very possible, because we have a 5-year contract, that what you're seeing is the expenditures that we expended to our contractor versus, and it being cumulative versus broken down fiscal year by fiscal year.
Okay. So I'd like
So what's hard, I think you're right, this is more of a finance question.
Yeah.
We in Public Works don't pay a lot of attention to what's in that box. That's just, it's a black box to us, literally. But if I'm speculating, I see that down on the appropriations line, 11 million of prior approved appropriation, and then, as of January 23, 9 million of that 11 million expended and encumbered would be the way I would read this.
Okay. And so last comment, I guess, would be if we, thinking about just the cycling improvements, and I know Mr. Lashinsky has like a list of like quick improvements that probably don't cost too much money within right of way. Then there are the more complicated ones that need more money, more design. If we have projects like that, can we utilize either the sidewalk or the general roadway funds, especially like, that the amount of money for that's probably minuscule compared to the overall roadway resurfacing money, or should we set up a brand new fund for cycling or equitable mobility improvement, something like that? Just thinking out loud, because that's something I'm thinking about with this next budget, is what to propose.
Again, thinking out loud, I think it's helpful to have the general sort of program that we have, where when we're going to do something major, $50,000, $100,000 or more in a given location, that we do that as its own separate CIP. And as this one is currently written, we use it purely to more or less replace in kind or repair. Fair enough, Sam?
Yes, and and I know some of what you're talking about is major improvements, but we have spent parts of those of that funding for both striping initially, bicycle lanes. We've also used it to replace the striping for bicycle lanes as they have worn out.
So in the past, we have used this CIP to do cycling improvements. Yes. So we can continue to do that.
Okay. And is that called, so when you have a roadway project or something like that, or even sidewalk, is that included in that scope, in that project review at some point? Is there an analysis of, complete streets, anything we can do to achieve complete streets, a road diet, anything we can do at the same time for cycling improvements, like while we're out there reconstructing or repaving? Like, is that something, does plan and zoning pulled in at some point to kind of help with the complete streets aspect?
So if we're talking about small things again, right? Let's say $20,000 or $30,000 where we can make a
I mean, for big ones,
quick win.
big projects even, like for any of the roadway, like Barbud or whatever, Bay Ridge, a part of the project life in the city, is there a point when that's like sent to plan and zoning for review as far as like complete streets, anything we can do while we're out there? Oh, this is part of the cycle master plan. Let's get a bike lane while we're in there. Or is it, I'm just, you understand what I'm?
I do, and just in my observation, 3-4 months here, or doing this kind of thing, we make sure that Jennifer Fate, who runs this roadway resurfacing program, along with Alexis Ryder, who's doing these traffic safety studies and the CIP projects, and Eric are all on the same page. I'm not sure that that the coordination previously has been to the level that we're shooting for today. Fair enough there, Eric, on the coordination of what we're all doing, making sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, you are. I mean, I think sometimes the challenge is that we're so constrained. We're always robbing Peter to pay Paul with these projects. It seems, where you're going to have to take somebody's parking away. You're going to have to take, borrow property from somebody to do some. And I mean, I don't think the thinking is wrong to say, well, certainly if we narrow lanes or look at different standards, maybe we have more room. But I think that just the general constraints of the city have limited, thinking outside the box on a lot of these projects. It's just you can't really do anything without stepping on somebody's domain in some way or another, and that just adds time and cost and challenge to the project. So that's just one of the things we deal with.
But ultimately, we are looking at every opportunity to improve pedestrian and cycling, right? We have this other, the great idea, which is, I can ride from my house to your office kind of thing, right? And how can we do that maybe where we're not on Forest Drive, doing something in the, well, I don't even know which side it is, but the South River side, I guess, Harness Creek side. What's the art of the possible back there, given what's going on with Providence Point, the Willows? So yeah, we dream big.
Let me just interject, because I've been here a little longer than Burr.
Just a couple.
So the reason that you have a bike lane along Bay Ridge Road is, as part of the resurfacing of Bay Ridge Road, we put in a bike lane. The reason you have a bike lane on Chinkapin Round Road is because, as part of the resurfacing of that, we put in a bike lane. The reason we have handicap ramps, that the city had handicap ramps almost every intersection city had handicap ramps, is because we, as part of our road resurfacing program, put in handicap ramps. And those were based on the concept of, how do I get to key areas? How do I get from downtown to Maryland Hall? That was a route that we laid out. We did not work with planning and zoning to do that. We did that internally. How do I get to the library? The same thing. We went looking for ways to connect up the community to allow the people to get to where we saw as use centers, and then we expanded out from there to fill in the gaps. So we have been using these monies on Public Works' own initiative to improve the city and to provide access.
Thank you. Alderman Arnett, you had that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. But years ago, we were only putting $2 million into roads. I think we were putting 600 into sidewalks, but we found from Public Works that the average lifespan of a road surface is 20 years, but we were funding it as though we're replacing it every 30 years. So we increased the amount of money we were putting into roads at that time to $3 million, so that we could resurface all of our roads on a 20-year cycle. if we start pulling money out for doing these other kinds of things, we're not keeping our 20-year cycle in place. And so I would argue very much if you want to have special things like bicycle lanes or other kinds of things, it needs its own fund. And this fund should keep in it for roads the sufficient amount of money so that we can adhere to that 20-year cycle, unless you've changed the average length of a road surface. And that is why we changed it from $2 to $3 million, and maybe we need to make it more. But I just walking in before with you, got a call from someone complaining about how their road hadn't been resurfaced, and it's been blah, blah years. This is something that was a policy decision made by the council years ago with regard to the CIP to maintain that 20-year cycle. I'm gonna, when it's my turn again after everybody else, I want to come back to that because it's a question Alderwoman Finlayson is raising about her cycle of roads in her ward versus what's now planned to be done in Ward 8. But maintaining this as a sacred, keep to the 20-year resurfacing schedule, I think is important. I think all these other things are important as well, but when we rob Peter to pay Paul, we can't keep on that 20-year resurfacing cycle. So, and I think, Sam, you were actually the one that brought that to our attention.
I did that study.
Yeah,
So-
right. So I think as a council policy, we need to remember that everybody gets their road surfaced in all their wards at least once every 20 years. And we need to keep enough money in here so that that can happen. When we want to do other things, which I think are all good, we need to come up with other money. Thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe just one follow-up comment. As a logistical matter, as the CIP list grows and grows and grows, and many of them have overlapping scopes or sounding scopes, that, you know, maybe that's a little confusing. So if there's something else out here that plussing up the budget fits well, you know, maybe that's the way to go. If there isn't something that's a good fit, then sure, another CIP project is fine, and we'll make it work.
Okay, thank you.
We have the capital reserve fund. The capital reserve fund so you're in the middle of a project in Ward 5, and you say, hey, it would really be good to add this embellishment. It makes a lot of sense, and we're here now. That's the time when you tap the capital reserve fund. You don't take it out of here, out of this cycle. So again, I think it's really very important just for our life because we get these very agitated calls from constituents, and I think they're correct. I mean, nobody wants to live in a city with a bunch of potholes. And so that's why we really have tried to say, fair's fair, everybody gets a new surface once every 20 years, and we have to have enough money in there to do that. So we need to keep in mind that there is that capital reserve fund also.
Make a quick response to that. I mean, 'cause our budget's based on,
I'm going to turn this off.
our budget's based on robbing Peter to pay Paul every year. Because we're revenue limited. But I think, I just want to say, because we need to start prioritizing this stuff if we're serious about pedestrian and cyclist safety. We have people who've died because many of our roadways, intersections are not safe or could be made safer. And so we need to get to that.
But that's a perfectly legitimate CIP project.
All right.
Is it my
sorry
turn
to-
yet? Is it?
Yes.
Thank you. Picking up on something Alderman Arnett said, I get same amount of calls. When is my roadway going to be resurfaced? There used to be a real handy dandy link out on the website. I could point them to it or I could look at it myself, but somehow or another, I haven't seen it lately. And I think it would be great if it goes back out there because it tells everybody when it's time. whether it's 2 years, 3 years, it was done last year and they don't remember. But it really was handy dandy to, and I even put it on, had it put on my Facebook page so people could know. But it did save a lot of calls. Is there some response to that?
The practice has been to publish 4 years at a time. 2 years that are very, very firm. And so that's what we have on the 2024 and 2025 calendar or schedule. We're in the process of building out tentative 2026 and 2027 plans. So those will be posted as soon as they're done. They do depend on the assessment, the forthcoming assessment.
Because it used to go out further. It would go out, it might have on it 5 years, 15 years, whatever it was. But it sure saved us a lot.
If you looked at remaining, if you looked at a condition rating that said you had a condition rating of 15 years, then you would expect your road to be repaved in 15 years. That's fair. But it was never, that was always subject to change because certain roads, deteriorated faster than others. We kind of try to keep up the main roads in a little better shape. We allow the residential streets to degrade a little further. So there was always an art that went to that. So that I would say, that as this has been relayed to me, is that assessment of all of the roads in the city would be a little bit problematic because it created a false expectation. That if you had a condition rating of 8 or remaining service life of 8, that you could expect in 2032, my road is going to be repaved, and that wasn't always necessarily the case.
I think there's a way of handling that, to basically put that caveat out there. We're saying 10 years, but it's subject to change based on the circumstances you said. Because people don't remember. Right. They'll hit a pothole, and then they say, it's supposed to be done in 5 years or 2 years, or isn't it supposed to be done next year? So if you put the caveat out there, that will save us a lot of heartache and also save you in sticking definitely with that 10, 15, whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And as I went through my opening rundown, I mentioned an assessment that was completed and will get posted soon. So that could be back up on the website, that product you're talking about, in 2, 3, 4 days.
Thank you. It is extraordinarily helpful. Thank you so much. I'm looking at this and a couple of things. One thing I'm going to mention, picking up on what you said about Russell Street. When we lived on Reedsville Street, we couldn't figure out why we didn't get snow removal. So Mayor Hillman was the mayor at the time. He came out to visit my aunt and uncle. We all had a community meeting. Come to find out, that roadway had not been annexed into the city like the rest of them. So there are little parts and pieces around here, including Gibraltar. And that was a real challenge when we were building town courts, trying to get all that situated as far as the businesses owning the half of the street. So I think that's what Mr. Fulton's office is working on, Gibraltar. Is that correct?
We are working on it.
Any update on it? I mean, it's been going on, I know, for several years, but you've got several owners along that roadway?
We're still working to compile adequate legal descriptions for both Gibraltar and another project. And we're still working to get those legal descriptions completed.
Okay, I'm not going to hold you to a timeline. Let's see. Southwood, yes, I said I'd seen some things going back and forth, so I'm glad that's on the horizon. West End Express Bikeway. And it says, Inner We 30% design is moving forward, will need graduate hotel easements. Poplar Trail widening 30% plans will be submitted for permit, 30%, and it's not Outer We, it's Upper We. I want to make that clear. It was, when I came on the council, we were Outer West Street, and I said it sounded like we were out of the city. But because the numbers go further out when you move onto West Street, it's now called Upper West Street. So I just want to make that correction.
All right.
Words matter, and we felt like we were outside of the city limits. So Just want to make
We-
sure.
We actually call it the western extension, and then the inner we is the eastern extension. I'm not sure how those terms got in there. I mean, because the current CIP book doesn't use those terms, but
That's
yeah,
probably
we-
internal public works slang there.
Yeah.
Made it into the sheet.
yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Lashinsky. Let's see. Gibraltar, yes. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Super.
But I'm glad Alderman Arnett brought that up. It is a headache.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just
I don't know,
have
we don't know anything about potholes in our neighborhood, do we, Alderman Savage? No. We might live on some of the worst streets around, so we get it.
We still have the original pavement from 1988.
1985, yeah.
That's good. I have a
I think
question about
that
the
was 1987.
Taylor Avenue traffic improvements. I have been told that the new hotel going in, before it started construction, that there would be a traffic circle there, and that the traffic circle had been on hold because of the Graduate Hotel Lowe's Access Road. Then I heard a rumor a couple of weeks ago that they were moving forward. Here you say that the easement's been, or the deed has been under review. Is the traffic circle going in or not?
Not initially.
What do you mean initially? Because right now we're in projects talking about 2027, so beyond 2027?
We have spent, I'm going to speculate, 4 years trying to get the right-of-way from the Graduate Hotel. Okay? And they have resisted, and they have resisted, and they have resisted. And I am going to say, if everything stays in place, in 15 to 20 days, they will sign the deed. The hotel is getting ready to open shortly. The Planning Commission approved an alternative access point, which has a left turn lane that goes into the hotel, or goes into Lowe's Access Road. In order to build a traffic circle, there is significant improvements that have to be made to the west in order to get the grade coming into this traffic circle correct. There are also improvements that have to be made to the west, or to the east to also do that and to connect things up. Now that we've got the right of way, and again, it's the thing I saw literally at 3 o'clock was that they would execute in 15 days. We don't have enough time to put that, to design and build that, until we saw that they actually were going to sign off. We were not proceeding with design. Now that we've got this, we can go ahead and bring someone on board to do the design. We anticipate the traffic circle will go in. This was something that was recommended by Planning and Zoning. So I would look for it when we actually build the improvements to Taylor Avenue. And those improvements are going to go from Cedar Park down to the Park Place apartments. And we'll probably resurface the rest of Taylor Avenue at that time as well, the city portion of Taylor Avenue.
Okay. So we can clearly tell our constituents that there's not going to be a traffic circle in any time in the near future.
Not in the immediate future.
3 to 5 years, most likely.
Probably.
5 to 10.
And again, we will have to deal with the right-of-ways that are associated with Heidler and 4 or 5 other people. And they may be very difficult to get.
Okay. In conjunction with that, I know that there was a portion of sidewalk that was negotiated with the new housing development that's right there on Taylor Avenue, Terrapin Station. But it doesn't include a sidewalk from includes a sidewalk from Terrapin Station to the Poplar Trail, but it doesn't include a sidewalk from Terrapin Station to Cedar Park. So now we have 8 new houses. Sorry. Putting pedestrian traffic out there with a sidewalk that goes to the Poplar Trail, but if they're trying to get to the stadium or whatnot, we don't have. So is there any plan to add that remaining portion of sidewalk from there to Cedar Park Road?
I'll be honest with you. I looked at design on Taylor Avenue and doing the estimate on Taylor Avenue 7 years ago, maybe. I do not remember whether I had pedestrian sidewalk on both sides or not. I know I had it on the hotel side, and the reason we had it on the hotel side was because you already had a sidewalk that was coming up from Park Place, and we had built a temporary sidewalk that tied into the permanent sidewalk that we had built. I want to say that's Rose Lawn there, but I may have the wrong street, which then tied into the concrete sidewalk at that location. When you look at the side where Terrapin Station is, if you notice there are a whole row of electric poles that run along that side. There's also a very steep grade going up there, and I am not sure if you could get a sidewalk in there. This is very similar to the issue that we see on Bay Ridge for the sidewalk. You have 3 or 4 what are called underground poles at that location, and the underground poles are where they bring the wires down and put them in underground. If you have to relocate them, they are a small fortune. So I'm not sure if you can fit one in there. And if you can, you are chasing that back slope, just like we saw on Cedar Park Road, that caused the residents a lot of concern. If you have a steep slope there and you got to put a sidewalk in, then you are suddenly grading well back into people's yards.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
That concludes my questions. Oh,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Barbud Lane, I remember 10 years ago when I came on the council, and Alderman Kirby was here, and we were talking about Barbud Lane then. What's the holdup in 25 words or less on Barbud Lane?
This minute, it's acquiring the right-of-ways.
Okay.
Even though, it's a community-driven project, but there's some people who do not want to grant either temporary or permanent easements, and we're still working with them. We have been out there, I think, 4 or 5 times to meet with residents and get the sign off. There's another issue that has come up, that has come out of Anne Arundel County. We're tying a storm drain into their system. They initially told us what we needed to do was decrease the flow rate coming out of that system, because they had built a system which was undersized and they didn't want us adding to it. We have done what they asked us to do, and now they're asking other questions. We've gone back to them like a couple weeks ago and said to them, wait a minute, you said if we managed the stormwater, we didn't have to, that was adequate. And they said, well, I'm not really sure, let us look at it again. So we're kind of at that location now.
Thank you.
thank you. Alderman Arnett, did you have a question?
Okay.
All right.
Well, I don't
Alderman
want to delay the meeting any longer. I'm kind of hesitant to ask this question. Taylor Avenue, and I was With due respect, I was a little bit, I know we kind of chuckled when you said you don't look at the financials or whatever, but when I look at Taylor Avenue, I really don't have a good response from my residents. That, if I look at last year's capital budget, we had bond money appropriated for 2025 for construction in 2025. We have developer money of $310,000 that's going into that project. And we knew the design in January of 2023. So I don't really understand why there is this delay. And when you say 2027, there goes the bond money, probably the developer money as well. So tell me simply what's going on.
I'll take a crack because I think
Okay,
Sam tried. And so I'll try to just rephrase what he said. We didn't have property rights associated with where the Graduate Hotel joins into Taylor. Until we had property rights, it didn't make sense to bring a designer on board and start designing something we didn't know we would be able to build. That's kind of my understanding of the situation.
Sorry to interrupt, but there was a design in the 2024 budget. In the report, you see this design.
We never moved forward with that.
Okay.
Sam, correct me if I'm mistaken.
That's correct. That's correct.
We've just been on hold.
Okay. So it's on hold.
Was on hold. We get this executed. Now we're ready to go.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll make a general disclaimer here. Putting something into the budget doesn't mean it gets done. You might see some enhancements later along those lines.
I mean, my concern is you have bond money appropriated, a big chunk of bond money, and you also have developer money appropriated. So you have to be cognizant of that. That's all I'm saying. So thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Alderwoman Finlayson asked me to bring it up, but I have the same question. And we're back to our favorite roadways and sidewalks. It is Alderwoman Finlayson's belief that her ward was to get resurfacing in this coming year. And she was told no, because we're going to be doing the resurfacing in Ward 8 after the BG&E and water main construction work. I have two questions on that. One, given that I was blocked by BG&E getting over here again today, and it almost seems like water main work is ahead of gas work at this point. Is that going to be completed in this fiscal year for sidewalk and road resurfacing? Corollary to that, I thought BG&E was paying money to repair the streets after all of the work, at least some of it. So I don't think that money should be coming out of the $3 million for roadways. I think that they should be paying for the stuff that they've torn up. So I'll leave that, there's more, but I'll leave it to that. Is there going to be road work done in Ward 8, or are we going back to the scheduled road work in Ward 4?
Is Witten Court in Ward 8?
Pardon me?
Is Witten Court in Ward 8?
No?
No.
No, it's in Ward 4.
Ward 4,
Right.
okay. Then no, I don't see any Ward 8 in 2024.
Okay, good. I mean, that's not good, but yeah, so Alderwoman Finlayson's resurfacing questions, I think, are satisfied.
Well, the paving schedule on the website, it's pretty much all, it shows all Eastport for 2024 and 25, 9 out of 13, and then 9 out of 10, I think, are all Eastport. BGE, it says BGE Eastport Phase 2. And then BG gas main upgrade.
So this is the schedule. It's all we think we can execute. We have plenty of money. We don't have capacity to manage and really our contractor's ability to execute. This was not the most aggressive schedule we could have published. Don't want to set expectations we can't meet. Weather, logistics, things of that nature, quite possibly we get Eastport done and quite a little faster than we show here on this schedule. And then 2026 work comes in, gets pulled forward into 25. That's certainly the hope, right, is that this isn't the list, but I don't want to falsely advertise.
Yeah, well, okay, I'm a little confused though, because it's this 2025 paving schedule, and all 9 out of 10 are Eastport. So yeah, all of them are Eastport, it looks like, except for
Right,
one.
most of our work in 24 and 25 will be in Eastport. This last year we did a lot in Murray Hill. It works better if you send a contractor here all over the city. It costs more, takes longer.
Yeah. No, I get. Well, I guess to Alderman's question though, how much has BG contributed? Because I know
roughly $600,000. We got the check.
That's
okay,
it.
that's it. Because this is our entire paving schedule. Presumably, would be our entire $3 million resurfacing schedule. Yet they're only contributing.
We're not going to spend $3 million in 24 and $3 million in 25. Money will roll over and be available for us in later years. If the only things we do are here, we won't be spending $3 million each year. It's just challenging to work there.
How much does it represent as far as cost and all the Eastport for FY25 or 4?
It's been a couple of months since I asked that question, but I would say we're going to be doing less than $2 million.
Okay. Well, it still begs the
Each
question
year.
if 90% of them are BG related and
BGA is not funding the full cost of these projects. It's a cost share.
the projects as far as the gas main upgrade or as far as
the paving.
Well, that's my point though. Like, do we have a policy? I have to ask what the county does, but presumably if they impact a majority of the road or a large significant portion of the road surface, it's not us. We're giving them, that's our road. We're giving them permission to have their utilities under our road with an easement to them. We don't have to do that for them. We're giving them that courtesy, yet they're making us taxpayers pay for 70% of the cost.
You could look at it the other way around, and BGE kind of does, that these roads need to be resurfaced anyway, and the $600,000 we're getting is kind of a bonus to the city.
Yeah, but
you know what I'm saying, right? But that's water under the bridge. I think those terms were negotiated years ago.
I think, let me interject something, and Burr can kick me under the table if he wants. One of the reasons we went to this was because in the first phase of Eastport, as Alderman Arnett, I'm sure, can testify to, BG&E came in and they milled and overlaid half of the street. And that was what they did. They milled it, they overlaid it, and that was it. If there were base failures, they didn't fix the base failures and the road potholes. They didn't repair the curb and gutter. They didn't repair any sidewalk. They didn't do any of those things. And after we saw that and all the complaints we got, and I'm sure, Alderman, you got those complaints because I have a paved one, nice surface on this side, I've got a lousy surface on this side. We said to BG&E, we don't want to do that. If you're going to be in there working, we want to come in and we want you to contribute, and then we'll go in and we'll do the repairs, and we'll do the repairs the way they should be done. We will fix the base failures. We will fix the curb and gutter. We will fix the sidewalk. And that's what we proceeded to do over in Homewood, Germantown, when they finished that work. And we also put in new water mains at the same time. So as they have gone through, as we've come back to Eastport, as they have come back to Eastport, they put in the gas main. We've been in replacing the water mains, and once they are finished, BG&E has contributed or is supposed to contribute to that resurfacing. They put in, normally we do an estimate, we tell them how much it's going to cost based on our prices, and then they come in, or we come in, and we do the complete job so that Alderman Arnett doesn't get the, how come only half my street was done, and that we get in and we do the base repairs that need to be done so that it's a complete job.
So to follow up on that, and it was Tora Burkhart that was primarily the interface from DPW when we were educating the residents about how this was all going to happen, we were told that when we dig it up for gas and then we dig it up for water, we're only going to do temporary patches. But when we come back, what you're going to get after suffering through all of this construction is complete streets. Sidewalk to sidewalk, new sidewalks, new street. I think that story may have changed, but that's why I'm asking this question. Are we getting complete streets, or are we only repairing sidewalks where they were damaged by gas or water?
Again, Burke can kick me if he wants to. Someone passed that on to you. It may have been Torah. It may have been Torah who said that. And this came up in a previous meeting. You brought this up, at which time I told everybody on my staff, don't start to talk about complete streets because it sends the wrong message. We will go.
It sends the right message.
Well, it sends the right message, but what we will do is we will go in and repair any curb that's been damaged, regardless of who did it. So if there's bad curb, we will go in and repair the curb. If there's bad sidewalk, regardless of whether it was BG&E, we will repair the sidewalk. We will not be coming in and putting in all new curb, all new sidewalk, because there are other issues associated with doing that type of work in addition to the cost. But there are other issues when you come in and, for example, you put in a 6-inch curb, which is what our standard is. And what you've got right now is a 1930 piece of curb that's now 4 inches high. When I come in and put 6 inches in there, now I'm blocking water back in people's yards. You know, now I'm creating other issues. So, you know, we will be following what our standard practice is, which is repair bad curb, repair bad sidewalk, regardless of whether BG&E did it or it's just age, and then resurface mill down and resurface the road.
So that confirms what I had heard, and I think I did hear it from you, and that means no turtle-friendly curbs either.
All right. Alderman Pendeltraub.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Vogel, you just indicated, correct me if I'm wrong, you like to have the contractors go here, then there. Am I correct in sort of what you're saying?
In general terms, correct.
Okay, now when you have residents in other wards, say besides Ward 8, and they travel to Ward 8 and they see what's going on over there, then the big ugly E word comes up, equity. You get my point?
I do.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I do travel around the city. The roads in Eastport are absolutely the worst. Chester, 6th Street going towards Back Creek. It's absolutely awful. And you can, I'm just an analytics guy, right? We'll look at you look at the assessments, and you can see that nobody's getting any special treatment here. If anything, it's the other way around. Those streets are long overdue.
I'll forward those complaints to you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions regarding the report on CIP? Thank you very much.
All right, we'll do it again in a month
Appreciate your
with the rest of the
Thank you
council.
very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So this is warm up then. This is warm up then before the.
Right. Moving on to our agenda, we have 10 minutes to complete the last two items, because as much as I love you, I am not spending my Valentine's evening with you.
Can I move we recommend favorably as amended by Rules and Government Committee?
Ordinance 3023, updates and corrections to special residential parking districts. Are there questions about this? I know that we saw this legislation in January and several questions came up, and we asked for some clarification.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My recollection is that there was some conflicting language between two amendments, and now we fixed that in this, and it's presented to you now on Legistar regarding
Great.
the public testimony and, the promulgation by the city manager in consultation with the transportation director, and then add a transportation committee meeting. We'd review them as well.
Great. Are there any questions about that? Alderman Del Charles?
No questions?
All right. Do I have a motion for a favorable review, favorable recommendation?
Yeah, I think it'd be
We have some
favorable
amendments?
recommendation with amendments 1, 3, and 4, I believe, from Rules and Government. There's one from, number 1's from sponsor. Number 2 is mine, but that did not make it through Rules of Government. Number 3 and 4 did, so that might be a good way to do it.
All right. So favorable recommendation to the city council on 03023 with, as amended in amendments 1, 3, and 4.
Correct.
Do I have a motion for that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes. Moving on to 03123, certain street parking updates and corrections. There were 2 amendments on this, one of them being
Which one are you on now? Are you still on?
03123.
Did we pass this one? Just the
believe so.
amendments?
With, as amended?
Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't hear, we did just the amendments and then we did the final passage, but I didn't hear 2 different, I didn't vote twice, but, okay. If you say I did, then
asked for the motion to
come back.
pass it with amendments.
Gotcha. Okay, not a problem.
I see Jason up there. Do you have something to say to 03123?
Is that changing Bloomsbury to District 4 and also talks about
Can you come to the microphone and state your name and
Jason Kinney, Senior Manager, SP Plus Parking. Is that the one that discusses the 9-hour parking on King George and the 9-hour parking on St. John's? 31?
No, 30 does that.
31? Yes.
Oh, 31, okay.
30 does that.
That was the last one.
Oh, sorry. 030 does that.
Can we go back to 030 real quick? There is a change that needs to be made.
No, oh, God help us.
It's just one thing that needs to be stricken.
We can do that quick.
Okay. Yes.
Sweet.
Motion to reconsider.
Do I have a motion to reconsider our recommendation?
Yeah, I'll move to reconsider.
Second.
30.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're going to reconsider 03023 with added information from.
Mr. Kine.
See, maybe we'll put Mr. Fulton to work today on this.
Yeah, no, Cynthia.
We might get an amendment
Cynthia.
for you to work on.
Okay. I don't.
Okay, St. John's Street, they have added a D to the code. I'm sorry, I'm looking for it.
St. John Street from Calvert Street to College Avenue.
Yes.
That's
and
line number 5 on page 2.
The D allows residential parking there.
Make sure you get in the mic. Speak in the mic.
I'm sorry. D, item D, in, I think it's 1220-185, which is the 9-hour parking on St. John Street. I might have those backwards. It might be 180. Currently allows District 1 residents access to those 9-hour areas. They took it out of the King George parking. they left it in St. John's parking, and I was hoping to get that removed. What's going to happen is the St. John's parking is pretty much sold every legislative session to members of the press for them to have a parking spot to access session. And what's going to happen is we're going to end up towing a bunch of residents' cars if in code it allows a D4 resident to park there.
Alderman Turn.
I was just asking if there's any reference in the ordinance that you can give us that you're talking about, Jason. Where does it say what it's not supposed to say? I'm trying to find it.
I don't see
Yeah.
185. That's what we're.
Oh, 03023.
I mean, an alternative, maybe you could submit this to the sponsor and we could take this up for the final council vote.
Well, that's why I jumped up, because I did want to talk to Ellie after the meeting before, but you guys voted on it, so.
But I mean, it still has to go before the whole council, so.
So we just
still make
vote to
changes.
recommend it to the full council. So our voting on it doesn't mean that it
Yeah.
will go through.
If
It'll
you have
go on the
to
next
tweak it,
agenda.
yeah, if you have to tweak it, talk to Marcus
Can you,
and myself.
can you repeat your concern one more time? Are you looking at what's already been struck as Part D, which
No.
states, no?
I'm looking at what Cynthia sent me. I don't have my computer.
Yeah, we don't have staff here to help either.
Right?
So there's a special parking district number one, which consists of.
I mean, I'd be inclined to let the sponsor determine whether or not she wants to, yeah.
St. John's Street.
Okay.
Which one's?
So can we
It should be.
Reconsider the motion to reconsider?
reconsider the motion to reconsider?
I'll just make the motion that we did last time for amendment 1.
I'd rather try to get it straightened out in the next 2 minutes if we
Okay.
can. Because then we got to start the process and explain it all
You're
over
going to
again.
get us into trouble.
He's the lawyer. He didn't tell us we couldn't do it.
Okay. Could we go on to 03123 and come back to this?
Okay,
Kaylin, can we do that?
yeah.
Okay. So I'd like to accept a motion, or I'm looking for a motion to give a favorable recommendation to 03123 as amended, 1 and 2.
So moved?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right. So favorable recommendations. District 5's in my ward.
We'll talk,
All right.
we'll talk later.
We'll talk off. We'll talk.
I would be in favor of waiting. I mean, making our motion so we can get,
Yeah. Would you be okay for us to go ahead and approve this favorably, knowing that there's going to possibly be another amendment?
Yeah, that would cure what we're gonna do today and not try to regurgitate it the next time around.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. So I'm asking for a motion to approve
To reconsider the reconsideration.
to reconsider to
but we don't need to, we can just, I'll
give a
just,
favorable
I'll just make a
recommendation.
motion for a favorable recommendation for, as amendment with 1, 3, and 4.
With the acknowledgement that there will be probably another amendment coming based on this.
Ditto.
Yes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I will take a motion for adjournment.
Kato, did you?
So moved.
Okay.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.